Okay, I think we are live. We will call the meeting to order at 7:04, and we will begin with the flag salute. Flag's right over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. Making sure, Janet, can you hear us? Maybe. Lori, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect, thanks. Just wanted to check in, make sure everybody was live and functional. Okay. First up, we have our agenda review. There were a couple of minor modifications today, and if you all saw the note from Dan, we actually added something that's going to kind of get scratched back off. But assuming all of that, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as published.
I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
So moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Okay, I'll let you call.
I'll be calling the roll, and just for everybody's benefit, I'll be going this way. So Lori, you will be up first, and Janet, you will follow Owen, just so you're on preparation. So, Lori.
Yes.
Tom.
Aye.
Aaron.
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next up, we have our consent agenda. There are a few items on here, including minutes and standard employment issues. I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay.
Lori.
Yes.
Tom.
Aye.
Aaron.
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Okay, next up, we have SFEA.
So, this is my first time doing this. This thing move?
I hope it works.
Okay, good. So, hello, my name is Allison Stolfus, and I've taught a number of your kids, and it's been my absolute pleasure to do so. I've taught for 19 years. I'm going into my 20th year, and my whole career has been spent in the Silver Falls School District. And it's been, honestly, my total privilege to work with kids out of this community. It's an extraordinary place to teach and work, which is probably why I've stayed here my whole time. It's also my privilege to be the association president this year, and I was elected this spring, and I represent like 93% of our licensed staff in the district, and that includes mostly classroom teachers, but also speech pathologists, behavioral specialists, our counseling staff, and most recently like a social worker that joined with Sequoia Falls. I think we all agreed last year was the absolutely most challenging year of our careers, and we've got a lot of work to do this next year. So I will be coming to you each month to let you know what's happening in our buildings from a teacher's or an educator's perspective. I think, you know, right now in August, there's not a lot to talk about. I have heard from some teachers that are starting to have those dreams. Jennifer might know what I'm talking about. You wake up and you're like not ready. I know a lot of teachers have some trepidation about what awaits us with our students this year, but I have no doubt that our staff will, you know, rise to that occasion, and we're ready to receive these kids. We work very, very well with our district office staff. I think it's a new dawn in our district. And as school board members, I think what we would ask from you is just communication. I'm available if you have questions. I think we're going through some of the most difficult times in our personal lives, maybe our professional lives, and definitely as in our schools, very difficult time. So communication is key. I really hope that you guys will have some time to go through our buildings, especially the ones that maybe you're not the most familiar with, and spend some time really talking to staff and not just, touring. And I know buildings are an issue, but our staff, I think we're really proud of what we do. We work really hard, and would love to develop that relationship with the people that represent us on the board. Finally, I just want to extend a thank you to you all, personally and on behalf of our educators. It is extraordinarily hard time, I know, to do the job that you're doing. I know you're getting swamped with emails, and you have a full house tonight, and there's just lots of pressure, and certainly is not lost on any of us how much work this actually takes. So thank you on behalf of our educators. And that's it for me. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you. Not exactly, but I'll just say I'm really excited to have you on board, and can't wait to continue working with you. So.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. This brings us to our first public comment. Now, we have a couple of things going on tonight. One is that we have public comment that'll likely occur online. We also have public comment that'll likely occur in-house. In addition, we've had some people email us some public comment. Now, it's not our practice to read those emails, and we're not planning to do so tonight, but they will be entered into the record for tonight's minutes if they specifically said, this is what I want to have read for tonight. So we will be doing that. So with that, I'll try to figure out how we're going to do this. I think if you're on Zoom and you want to speak, there's the raise your hand. You also have the opportunity to email Derek McElfresh or Debbie Valoff, both of whom I believe are trying to monitor emails, and that can work. Obviously, if you're here, feel free to come on up to the table and introduce yourself that way. And I know that a couple people had emailed ahead of time, and so I think what we'll do, and I'm going to read the statement here in a second, but I think we're going to start with one of those in a minute, as soon as I finish reading the statement. Okay?
So just a clarification, so Debbie's not checking email as far as that goes, but Derek, you have those monitored?
I am.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to read our statement while we're getting this queued up, and then we'll begin with one of our online folks, and then we'll continue on with, I guess, in whatever order they come. So we're glad you're here and welcome you to address the board at this time with your ideas, opinions, questions, concerns, or compliments. Please be certain to sign in before you present. And of course, if you're here, you'll state your name and who you are, and if you're online, of course, you're already sort of logged in. Remember that we all model the way for our students, and we ask you to share your thoughts in a respectful way. The board's role during public comment is to listen. Rarely will you get an immediate response to information. If there is follow-up necessary, we will direct our superintendent to do that. In order to ensure equity among speakers, the board will limit remarks to 3 minutes per individual. If a group of 3 or more wishes to appoint a representative to speak on its behalf, the board will extend the time for remarks to 5 minutes. There's also a second public comment later in the agenda specific to any discussion and action items of this meeting. Thank you. Okay. So I believe he said Noah is going to be up. I don't see.
Yeah, I'm not sure my video is working. There we go.
All right, now we can see you.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Noah Brimhall. I'm the father of an 11-year-old who will be entering the 6th grade at Silverton Middle in the fall. Chair Edmonds, board members, Superintendent Drew, thanks for the opportunity to give comment this evening. I'm here tonight to voice my support for a masking policy in the Silver Falls School District that is science and fact-based. The board should reverse the district's June decision to not require masks in the coming school year, Masks should be required for all students, faculty, and staff regardless of vaccination status to start the year. This follows both CDC guidelines for the health and safety of all and the state's mandates as announced as of late July. A lot has changed since the district's mask policy was announced in June. The Delta variant, which is more easily spread and possibly more deadly, is now the dominant variant in Oregon. In the school environment, at least for now, vaccinations are unlikely to be sufficient to stop the spread of COVID, with all students under 12 being ineligible to receive a vaccine, and only around 50% of those 12 to 17 in Oregon being vaccinated. Most students will not start the school year vaccinated. Less than 53% of folks in the 97381 zip code have received at least one dose of the vaccine. This means that most of the people, students, staff, and faculty in our schools will be at higher risk for transmitting and catching COVID both at school and in the wider community. Masks can reduce exposure risk by 70% or more, which is especially important in environments with children unable to be vaccinated. I would urge the board to make a science-based decision to require vaccinations for staff and faculty where allowed under employment contracts. The district should also encourage all eligible students and their families to be vaccinated, and should continue the great policy of vaccination clinics that occurred last spring. Once vaccines are available to all students and have full FDA authorization, they should be required for all students, much as you require polio, MMR, and Tdap immunizations. Nobody is happy about masks being necessary again, but the prospects of outbreaks and COVID among Silver Falls school community, students getting seriously sick, and quarantines for a large number of students is even worse.
30 seconds.
We all know that our students will thrive being back in the classroom. So let's do what's necessary to make sure they can do that in a healthy and consistent manner. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Derek, do we have others kind of queued up online?
We have no others online. We do have some who pre-registered to speak in person, and so we can begin with them.
Perfect.
If Stephanie Ahan would like to begin. And I apologize real quick, just to be clear. Ms. Ahan is representing a larger community and is requesting 5 minutes.
Very good.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your service to the Silver Falls School District. My name is Stephanie Ahan. I'm here on behalf of myself and the Russian Old Believer community. We are very disappointed to hear the governor's announcement on the mask mandate. Governor Brown is going back on her word, sidestepping local control by forcing another statewide mask mandate on our kids. This is purely political. It ignores the science and overlooks the damage to our children's social development and mental health. We hope Silver Falls School District Superintendent and School Board will take a firm stance for students and parents in this district to keep decision-making on this issue in local control and have masks be optional to honor each family's wishes for their own student. We ask district leaders to consider the full impact of this mandate on student safety, learning, and social development. Children can be medically, physically, and psychologically harmed by mask mandates. Masks can be a form of discrimination and inequality. Some families may not have the resources to buy the cute and trendy masks, so they'll have to use school-provided ones. This can show their economic status to everyone. Mental health problems are on the rise. Anxiety and depression is seen in younger and younger ages. State officials aren't considering the long-term psychological effects masks have on communication and self-image. Many of the kids choose to talk less and not ask questions when they don't understand something. Some kids feel they look bad or weird. This can cause low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression with lasting effects. Personally, I find it hard to breathe and get anxious when wearing a mask. I've heard kids complain about headaches. My heart aches for the kiddos who wear a mask all day long. Imagine all the germs they collect when they play and sweat in them. Kids have a tendency to throw their stuff around, and I'm sure the masks collect a lot of germs. That's unsanitary. Parents have been much more attentive, keeping students home if there's even a hint of illness, and should be trusted to do so again in this next school year. So why should the kids have to suffer and wear these masks? Last year, we chose to homeschool our children because we didn't agree with the governor's mandates. Sadly, I think more and more families are looking at different schooling options. This seems to already be happening as the Silver Falls School District enrollment is down nearly 400 students for the coming year. The problem is coming from the top at state level. The real issue isn't about mask mandates. It is about control. Current state leadership wants to take away individual rights to make choices for ourselves and our children. They are trying to take away our medical freedom and push a vaccine that is not even approved by the FDA. It is an experimental, unapproved drug with long-term adverse side effects, dismissing natural immunity for those who survive COVID, or an existing low-cost medication for COVID called ivermectin. I know a family that lost their father to COVID. When their mom got sick with COVID shortly after, she took ivermectin and survived. Isn't it ironic that we haven't heard of any medicine to kill the coronavirus or seen any Mucinex or Theraflu commercials, but a whole lot of advertising on getting this experimental vaccine out? No one gets colds or flus anymore, just COVID and now the Delta variant. A friend died from a heart attack last year, but the doctor said he died from COVID. He didn't even have COVID. They just needed the numbers. My understanding is the mandate is not indefinite and would be considered on a month-to-month basis. I am aware school boards and superintendents can only do so much. However, we implore you, our school district leaders, please find the courage and strength to stand up and fight back against this arbitrary mandate and insist on a return to local control. Perhaps even consider joining a growing crowd of other school district boards, such as Canby and Molalla, working towards putting forth a resolution into law that firmly keeps this decision within districts in a civil suit regarding the legality of mask mandate in schools based on ORS 339.288, which prohibits restraints over a part of the body that impedes or creates risk of breathing. You may have seen the leadership shown by other school districts like Culver, Crook County, and Sutherland school districts, and I ask that you follow their lead. Tell Governor Brown this isn't her decision to make. We ask this board be brave as our leaders. There are leaders such as Governor DeSantis.
30 seconds.
And be the protector of this community and stand in the way of forced mandates. Other members of our community are also reaching out and contacting the governor, ODE, and OHA with the same issues or views. Please continue to let the lawmakers know that Silverton wants to implement these mandates differently and more inclusively. State lawmakers need to come up with a more thought-out, common-sense approach rather than the one choice to comply or stay out. Decisions need to be made by parents as to what is best for their children, both for masks and vaccines. Please make it optional. If a family wants to wear masks, please do. But for the rest of us that think they're more damaging than good, don't make us wear them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ahan. Okay, thank you. Hi. welcome.
Hello, good evening. First, I want to thank you for letting me have a voice here on the school board because my kids are no longer in the Silver Falls School District. But I want to say when they were here, I applaud all of you and all of you and all of you because they got an amazing education and they had an amazing science teacher. Mrs. Stolfus, yes. The reason that I am here tonight, though, is because I really care about my community, and I want the kids in our community to have the same advantage that my kids had. So I want to address the mask mandate that the governor has put out there, and I'm hoping it's still just a recommendation in the schools that either we can do it or we can't. Is that true?
Not currently.
Okay. Okay, well, I am against the mask mandate, and let me tell you why. First, I want to say I want the school district, the Silver Falls School District families to have a choice. I want freedom to be what rules our community. And that freedom comes from the parents who know their kids best. Let it be their choice. We know at this stage of the game, I'm not here to convince you about to get a vaccine or not to get a vaccine, or about this, how you feel about this COVID virus. We know where we stand, but we should have the choice for our kids and whether they wear a mask or not. I'm also a little suspicious of Kate Brown's reasoning for the mask mandate, and I'll tell you why. Back in 2018, 2019, the flu season killed 480 children. Now, do you remember the really bad flu season of 2017 to 18? I do, because my daughter was in health OC, and they wanted her to get a flu shot because the flu was so bad. Well, her and several of her friends chose not to get the flu shot. They were the only students in health OC who did not get the flu. But more importantly, we had 643 children die that year in the United States. Since January of 2020, we've had 332 deaths that were children. Where was Governor Brown, or whoever was governor back in 2017, then to say, hey, we need to make some changes in the schools? I also want to state that just putting a mask over someone's face is not going to help. Where's the health of our children? Where are they talking about, hey, let's get some vitamin D in our kids, because we know this has 80% of reducing the symptoms and the transmission of COVID-19. Also, it's time to start putting healthy food in our kids' diets. Okay, so again, I just want to state that I hope you make the decision not to make masks a mandate, but a choice. Thanks.
Thank you.
We now do have several more online comments, so we'll just let them in one at a time.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my name is Eliza Portland, and I would like to thank each of the school board members for your service to our community. I agree with following CDC and ODE recommendations for masking. I appreciate that the guidance regarding this advice will be made monthly instead of annually. Upon review of vaccination completion for our 97381 zip code, I see that nearly 50% of our total population has been vaccinated. I also have read that nationally there was an 84% increase in COVID cases in children last week, according to the Forbes article that I linked in the previous email that I sent to you all. It looks like this new Delta variant is harder on kids than the original virus. Also, it can spread more quickly between vaccinated and unvaccinated people. My personal philosophy is to do what I can to support the well-being of my family and my community. I think it's most effective for the majority of our students to be in the classroom learning rather than comprehensive distance learning. The easiest way to keep buildings open is to keep case numbers low. As far as masking culture, I think it can be difficult for some students to mask when they aren't all being asked to mask. I also recognize that a few students may cause disruption in the classroom by regularly removing their masks. My heart goes out to the teachers dealing with this. I also wish that vaccinated teachers could be allowed to not wear masks, because students with hearing impediments or second language English students may use lip reading to support their learning, and a solid mask covering the mouth. On a side note, my fourth grade class is attending teachers who has experienced very much. Masking is optional, and she told us she would willingly mask up while at camp. As the days went on, we recognized that she
Eliza, we're having a lot of trouble hearing you now. I don't know if you have the ability to speak a
small
little
groups.
closer.
On Saturday, the day after camp ended, she had a head cold that started 10 days. Even colder, like this can cause serious gaps in learning throughout the school year, especially with this. At this time, it only makes longer community help and encourage our school district and community to keep looking out for the well-being of our community. First, your attention tonight.
seconds.
Eliza, can you hear me?
Thank you, Angela.
No, I think we've lost her. I mean, I can't hear anything now. Eliza, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You've gone so quiet that nobody can hear you anymore, Eliza. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Tell you my comments. Perhaps you can share them during your discussion later on the agenda.
Thank you, Eliza. Sorry about that. Derek, did you say we had a second one online already queued up?
We have several more, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kirsten Lumley. I am a parent of a second grader and a fourth grader in the school district. Candidly, I did not plan on speaking tonight, but I want to offer support and echo both Noah and Eliza's comments. First of all, I want to appreciate that both of them came prepared with the actual statistics and the science behind it. The science behind the masking is quite clear. If you look at any reputable data scientific source, the science behind the loss of transmission of the virus when people are masked and obviously when they're vaccinated is very, very clear. I appreciate that Noah put those numbers out there rather than some of the other responses that relied on anecdotal evidence. For those who may not have this firsthand experience, I work very closely with friends and colleagues in India, and I watched this Delta variant just devastate them months ago. I had friends and colleagues losing family, losing close friends, losing young people, getting extremely sick. I know a lot of people reference a high survival rate for children. I don't really want to wait till a lot of kids are dying before we make the right decision. I think sick kids is enough. We have a lot of hospitalizations all over the country. They're seeing a huge spike in pediatric hospitalizations around the country, particularly in areas with low vaccination rates and where mask mandates have already been lifted. While I appreciate the notion of choice, and I would often support that, unfortunately, when we're talking about an airborne illness and an airborne virus, it does not impact you. The decision you make to not wear a mask impacts everybody around you in your community. And while I would love to have this just be up to individuals, it's not that simple with an airborne virus. So I would like to applaud both the previous speakers, Noah and Eliza, and I would like to ask the school district to please follow the guidance from the science and follow the governor's orders. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. We're promoting somebody right now, right, Derek?
Yes, we're waiting for a response from Mercer, who has been promoted.
Okay.
Could you please say that name on the mic, Jonathan? I don't think I can hear you.
Lee, are you on?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, I am.
great, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. My name is Lee Mercer. I'm a 15-year resident of Silverton, and I've had a number of grandkids go through the school system, two of which are still in the school system. My mother's father, a strict Southern Baptist living in Arkansas, had his wife catch the Spanish flu of 1918 and die. My father's mother, a Mormon living in McGrath, Alberta, and 3 of my uncles and aunts caught the flu and were lucky to survive while my grandfather was fighting in the fields of France in World War I. All of these folks with deep faith in God did what they could to deal with that pandemic, but suffered along with 20 to 50 million people worldwide and 675,000 in the U.S. who died of the Spanish flu. With much better scientific and medical knowledge now, we have the opportunity to have many more folks survive in the current pandemic. But it is astonishing to me that so many people are ignoring scientific and medical experts and call for ignoring their recommendations to deal with COVID-19. I believe those who continue, often in the name of God and freedom, to call for ignoring the measures called for by scientific and medical experts are directly responsible for increasing death and suffering in this pandemic. If my grandkids in Silverton schools or my family and friends in our community suffer or die from COVID, I hold all of these science and medical deniers responsible. I hope the Silver Falls School District, I'm echoing now, I don't know if you can do anything about it, but I hope the Silver Falls School District listens to the experts and take measures necessary to keep our students and our community safe. If they fail to do so, they will join science deniers in causing more suffering and death in our community. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your work as a school board.
Thank you. Derek, are we? Couple more? Okay. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily Fern Dayton, and I'm a parent to the most amazing first grader. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. She has chronic complex medical conditions and multiple disabilities. She's just the most amazing child, and I just want to say, she's 3 times more likely to die from COVID-19 or have serious side effects. And just 3 weeks ago, many of you know because I emailed all of you, she had a status seizure from just a common cold from being around folks who unfortunately weren't masked. So OHSU, where she usually goes, there's a major echo here, was full due to overcrowded. So we couldn't go somewhere that actually knows how to handle her medical conditions correctly. Luckily, we were transported to Legacy, and we were told Legacy was also at capacity because they actually had to take in adult patients within the pediatric ICU. It was very concerning for me, for a child who we almost lost due to a 2-hour status seizure from a common cold. I just don't know how to tell people that my child's life matters. Your freedom is not worth more than my child's life. It's not okay. This all stems from societal ableism. Enough is enough, okay? I know it's hard, and my heart breaks for what it's like for children to go through having to wear masks and not being able to see their friends. It's hard, but imagine your child almost dying. Just please imagine this, okay? I didn't want to get emotional today, but I am just so heartbroken about how she has been treated, created as not an acceptable child. She's perfect, okay? And anyone who has disabilities needs to be honored, and that involves following the CDC and the American Pediatric Guidelines, which states firmly that masks save lives. And I'm so grateful for Governor Brown. I have been emailing her and calling her, and I know many of you are going to be angry with me, but that's been me constantly calling. Please, ODE, please, Governor Brown, protect my child's life. I want to know what health and safety plan Silver Falls School District is prioritizing. How are you really planning to safely go back to learning in person? PPS has amazing examples. They're putting HEPA filters in every classroom. They're requiring masks. They are doing testing for individuals who present symptomatic. We really just need to keep up with the Delta variant. I'm telling you, more than twice as infectious as SARS-CoV-2. It's 1,000 times more of a viral load within the nose and the mouth. So if you think I'm vaccinated and I'm not going to spread it and I don't have to wear a mask, that is not untrue. We can still spread it. Please just think of those who have disabilities and medical conditions. This is really important. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We have at least one more that I believe is disconnected, but we also have an in-person from Dr.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I do represent 21 physicians, so I would like the opportunity to have 5 minutes. I don't think it will be that long. So I'm Tom Newton. I live at 908 Reserve Street in Silverton. I have a letter here. Dear School Board, I have been authorized to reference the following 21 physicians. I'm going to add, I just reached out to him 4 hours prior to this meeting tonight, so I got 21 people out of a text to 6 people who have children in the Silverton schools or work in town and I've been asked to read this on their behalf. So these are the physicians: Denise Chun, Chris Buckley, Tim Peters, John Gilliam, Jeannie Savage, Leslie Trapeza, Annalise Carter, Manya Cooperstock, Susie Delmar, Seth Alkire, Heather Diaz, Nathan Bay, Brooke Renard, Scott Hamblin, Julian Usselman, Tony German, Jessica Lehrfeld, Sabine Volchok, Katie Snyder, Jesse Boer-Clancy, and John Turner. So I am a local emergency physician writing to support the Silver Falls School District in making decisions that follow public health guidelines regarding the problem of coronavirus-19. There is a great deal of public pressure on the district to validate and operate the schools with very different perspectives on what is felt to be best way to teach kids and respond to a disease that has grabbed international attention. Western medicine, germ theory, sterile surgery techniques, clean water, and vaccines have revolutionized the health of the world. Mainstream science and medicine has worked to create guidelines to maximize the opportunities for good health and longevity. Using these principles, the following assessments and recommendations have been created. COVID-19 has major short and long-term health implications, including death, lung disease, stroke, and chronic inflammatory syndrome. No risk of wearing a mask has been identified or validated in reference mainstream medical literature. Wearing masks or being outside with social distancing reduces risk of COVID as well as many other illnesses. Risk of transmission of COVID appears to be reduced by at least 70% by wearing masks. Anecdotal evidence indicates reduction to be more than 90 to 95%. Additionally, influenza and other common respiratory infections essentially vanished last winter with the wearing of masks. The following organizations endorse mask wearing indoors and at schools: American Academy of Pediatrics for all children over 2 years old, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. They also endorse vaccination when pregnant, but that's a separate issue. American Academy of Family Physicians, Infectious Disease Society of America, American Medical Association, American College of Physicians, American College of Emergency Physicians. Virtually the vast majority of the medical providers in this country endorse masks. I support our school district in choosing the greatest good for the greatest number and require wearing masks indoors. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no other online
Okay.
requests.
Anybody else in the audience that would like to present? Yeah, come on up. If you could be sure to just state your name and sort of your relationship to the district, we'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you guys for having me. My name is Jennifer Jacobson Brusa. I own Beloved Cheesecakes. And thank you again for having me. I have to look at my notes. Maslow hierarchy of needs is number 1, the physiological needs, which is food, water, breathing. The second one is security and safety. These two are considered the most often referred to as basic needs. I am a social worker. The reason why I became a social worker was because it was a 5th grade teacher who saved my life. How did this 5th grade teacher save my life? By reading my facial expressions in school. School was my safety net. Facial expressions show hidden feelings and thoughts. I was in an abusive childhood, and my father made me wear a paper bag over my head. Not only that, there was a lot more of the abuse. But it was a 5th grade teacher who saved my life. A 5th grade teacher who was able to observe my facial expressions. If you wear a mask, you cannot see children's facial expressions. You do not know what children are going through if they're wearing a mask. You cannot read their minds, you can't read their thoughts, you can't read what they're going through. Sorry, I'm really nervous too. I also work with special needs, and I have special needs come to my shop and work, and I know a lot of you know who Kieli is. And Kieli, having a mask over her is torturous. She needs expression. She is an extrovert. She loves people. She gets joy from seeing smiles. The Delta variant, where's the test? There's no test for the Delta variant. We're all going to get sick. It's normal. When is this going to stop? And if we comply, we are part of the problem, regardless. And what are we teaching our kids? School was my safe place, and it is supposed to be a safe place. And now you're sending kids with a mask that can't read teachers. Adults were scary to me. That is how I read my environment, was by able to read facial expressions.
30 seconds.
I just hope that you think of all the kids out there that school is their safety zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Carissa, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know how to turn my... Oh, do you want the video on?
Oh, yeah, I couldn't even understand her. Okay, yes, video would be fine. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Carissa Dao, and the mother of a 10-year-old 5th grader in the Silver Falls School District. I'm here today to express my support for the Silver Falls School District requiring masks in schools. Mr. Drew's claims that children can be in classrooms safely with no COVID prevention measures are not based in factual scientific information. It is incredibly disappointing that the superintendent in our district has made it clear that he believes he has more knowledge about virology and immunology than actual experts in those fields. Wearing a mask has been proven over and over to be an effective preventative at transmitting COVID-19. People in leadership positions need to be deferring to experts in their fields and listening to their recommendations. The fact that the board has allowed so much disinformation to be stated tonight is outrageous and damaging. Children under 12 are not old enough to be vaccinated, and packing them into rooms without preventative measures is only asking for Oregon to begin having the same rise in children's cases that the other states are already having. This is not a form of discrimination, religious or otherwise. COVID-19 does not care about anyone's beliefs. There is a specific test for the Delta variant, and we are teaching children that there are rules to be able to participate in society. I have also been told that there are people in the audience today that are laughing at those of us zooming in to voice our support, and I have not heard the board admonish them for this childish behavior. This is absolutely unacceptable behavior from adults.
I'm going to cut you off
very
there.
discouraging.
Excuse me. There's been no laughter whatsoever. I'm just going to make that clear for the record.
Okay. It's also very discouraging to see the entire board not wearing masks, especially when one of the board members was recently diagnosed with COVID-19 after being vaccinated. I would also request that parents are allowed to know the percentage of vaccinated teachers and staff at the Silver Falls schools. If I am expected to trust Silver Falls School District with the safety of my child, I expect honesty, and transparency from the district. The best scenario would be knowing if my child's direct teachers are vaccinated or not, and this does not affect or violate HIPAA. I am urging the Silver Falls School District to unequivocally follow the masking mandate. If they fail to do so, and my child becomes ill with COVID-19, I will absolutely follow all necessary steps to receive financial compensation from the Silver Falls School District and therefore the taxpaying citizens of Silverton.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, Jonathan. Hello, everybody. Thank you for what you do for our school district. I am a mother of a soon-to-be senior, and I have to tell you, this last school year was very disappointing. My son is a high B average student, and he got to go to summer school this last year because he failed. I do not believe that the masks do anything to help the transmission of COVID-19. And the CDC has also said that the PCR test doesn't know the difference between the flu or COVID-19. So we can bounce these things around. I've been working the whole entire time. I've never been quarantined. I work in the public, and I just think that the whole thing has gotten out of hand, and I understand that people are looking at themselves, but they also have to realize that there's been a lot of damage, and I have a lot of coworkers that have come back to work that are like so scared, and been so isolated. And it's the same thing with my kid. He was isolated, and finally started working, and that's where he's actually getting his interaction, and got to take off a mask at school. He hasn't been sick. He hasn't even had a sniffles in the last however many months we haven't been face to face. So I feel like the vaccination is a personal choice, and actually it's not a vaccination, it's an experiment. And there's no liability if you take it for anybody. The companies that make it are not liable. So when you have a damaged child or you have a damaged loved one, I have an aunt that had the anaphylactic reaction, and then following that she got the myocarditis, which the CDC and Marion County Health both put out a warning to look for it in their clinics because it is happening, and that's a permanent issue. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please remember to state your name when you begin.
My name is Jennifer Braden. I have 3 kids that go to Victor Point. I will say that this last year and a half of my kids being in school has been hard. I watched my oldest fall down to the ground numerous times, breaking down crying because of not being able to be around his friends, not being able to see any of his teachers, not be able to get the extra help that he has. He is an LRC, so he was not able to get that support that he was needing when he was at home. My youngest has chronic asthma, so she had to wear a face shield all the time, and she absolutely hated it. She did not want to wear it, but she had to because she couldn't do the masks, because the masks would just make her have tantrums and she'd start crying because it was hard for her to breathe. My middle child, he didn't want to go to school because he hated the masks. So with him and my going into 8th grader, both of them, it was a struggle. Neither one of them wanted to go to school. Neither one of them wanted to wear the mask. They still don't. And when I told them that this next year that they're going to have to be wearing masks, they freaked out. They already have asked me to pull them out. They asked me to homeschool them. They don't want to go to school with masks. They want to see their friends. They want to be able to talk to their friends. They want the normal childhood that they've always had. My daughter has not had a normal school year. She's going into 1st grade, and she does not know what a normal school year is because she was stuck behind a computer over half the school year. And then once she did go in, she had 9 kids in her classroom. And then her best friends were in a different cohort, so she didn't even get to see them or talk to them. I do work here at the high school. I'm in special ed. And I saw numerous of our students not want to wear the masks, and they did not like them. And then at the same time, I have anxiety with them. It was hard for me to sit in the classroom all day long wearing a mask. And also on top of that, I'm a medical assistant. I still have my certificates to work. And just recently I was working on my credits and everything for it. And one of the things it said in there is COVID is a cold virus. It is not the flu. It is not some strange, just random virus that's out there. It is a cold. And then I just had an appointment with my doctor who told me that they're saying that the Delta variant and COVID is also allergies, that people that have their allergies are coming up as COVID.
30 seconds.
I just want to say, please think of our kids. Think about how they are struggling with going into school, having to wear the masks and not be able to see or talk to their friends or even ask their teachers for help, and the teachers see their facial expressions behind those because it's hard to see them. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience?
My name's Melissa McEwen. I have 3 kids. Sorry, I'm nervous too. 3 kids who have attended Mark Twain, Robert Frost. They've all had wonderful teachers. This last year, I have twins that were in kindergarten. It was awful. And I know this year, you guys have already put out that this year is not going to be hopefully the same as last year. Both of my boys have reactive airway, basically, or asthma. I've had one hospitalized for croup, like literally croup. He was hospitalized for 3 days. I had to hold him down because he could not breathe so they could get resin epinephrine into him. He was flailing around like a fish. My point to all of that being, on top of that, they also have some seizures when they get sick. So my point is there's a risk that we're all taking by putting kids into school. When we were younger, we all had chicken pox. Some of us had, handled it well, others didn't. We all know when September comes around, we're gonna get sick. Things go around, kids are petri dishes, they're licking doorknobs, we all know that. My point also is that I'm not saying that COVID isn't there by any means. By putting my kids into school or allowing them to be there physically, know that I'm taking a risk that they could get it. I'm just saying that there is that risk. We all need to acknowledge it. I still don't think that masks for younger kids are appropriate. I coached t-ball this last year with my husband. I couldn't tell you the amount of kids who couldn't keep it on their face. They came up and it's like halfway up their face, it's down here, it was stuck in their helmets, and this was outside. My youngest son is 5. He can't figure out a mask. He goes and drinks with it out of the water fountain because he forgets that it's on. He comes home and it looks like it's been through a gym bag and off the playground, and it's very difficult to get young children to wear them properly and take care of them properly, even if they're washing their hands and all of that. It looked like he was on a bike trail with it or something. I think there is an appropriate way to handle all of it. I just don't think that masks at this time are appropriate for younger children. They don't know how to use them. They don't know how to function properly. Going back to what somebody was saying about, the social, I don't know, just 32. Kids at that age are learning how to respond to the world. They're learning from adults how to behave and read people's expressions, and they're not going to get that if they can't see everybody's full face. When the mask mandate, backed off a little bit, when everybody saw everybody's smiles and their face, it was weird. We weren't used to seeing people without their masks on, and kids are missing that. They're not getting that in school by having a mask on. So, thank you guys all for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Online. Okay, before we start that one, I just wanted to point out we're about an hour in, and we do have business to attend to tonight. So one of the things that I'm going to request, there is a second public comment. There will be some discussion on this topic, both regarding plans from Mr. Drew, as well as a board discussion topic. If you have follow-on things you'd like to say at second public comment, that would be, of course, entertained at that point. I was just going to say, it sounds like somebody's already promoted. Is that it?
I have not yet, but I can do that now. You tell me.
I was going to cut us off right at the hour is what I was planning to do. So, right. My request is, can we hold off additional comments for second public comment? That's my hope. Thank you. So with that, sorry, I got to open this back up. Okay. That brings us to our administrative and staff reports with Ready School Safe Learners Resiliently and Mr. Drew.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's going to take me just a second to pull up this PowerPoint. And Derek, for some reason the system isn't allowing me to share screen.
Sorry guys, we're having a little technical difficulty here.
Derek will pull it up.
Okay.
So Derek, we're going to do the low tech. When I say next slide, then you'll know to change it to next slide. Anybody who's worked with me knows that drives me absolutely insane, so we'll see if it works. I do have my own special clicker for that. Okay.
Right. Sorry, guys.
If it doesn't come up, I will speak to the points, and then I will be sure to have the 7 slides in the presentation posted for all of you. All right, so here we go. Thank you, and thank you, Derek and Daniel, for all your help. It's been a lot of practice getting our technology up, but considering that you guys are doing a great job. Good evening, board members. Thank you. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank our audience for their heartfelt comments, and as well as our folks zooming in also. We take our work very seriously here, and at least I will speak for myself in this position as your superintendent. I am a public servant, and I'm here to serve the public of Silver Falls. So in an easier way to describe, I need to be something to everybody. And so having said that, I just want to say how much I appreciate the comments tonight. I'm going to walk us through a very straightforward plan. It's not a long plan. It's fairly brief. It's 7 slides. And really, it'll give you basically the overall picture of how we're going about addressing the opening for fall. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the first slide. And the first slide, right up in front, you'll see health and safety strategies. And I want to start off by saying that we are a public school district, and our duty is to serve the public and be good stewards of public dollars. And that also means that we have an oath. Board members swore an oath. If you're an administrator here, you are licensed by the state, and which means that we follow the laws and the OARs put forth. And right now we have an OAR from OHA, which came by way of a directive from the governor, which does carry the full force of law. And so I want to start off by saying that right now our goal is to follow the law. We don't have a choice in that matter. And I know you as a board, I know you support this, and we've been through that. I've had one-on-one conversations with you. And so I just want to start off with that is what it is, and we intend to follow that. And a lot of stuff goes behind that in terms of forming that Oregon administrative rule. That's what an OAR is, and the reasons for it. But right now, that's not up to us to argue whether or not to implement or not to implement. We will not break the law. We will follow the law. So having said that, we will continue to work in each one of our buildings to make sure that our buildings have the proper ventilation. Every single classroom, and correct me if I'm wrong, my team, has a HEPA filter and proper ventilation, and we will continue to assess that. Part of what we need to do is also model the behaviors that we need from our students and our adults, and that just comes from proper hygiene. And our goal is to make sure that our schools and communicate out to their school communities also how that will look like at each individual building. And so that will start in the coming weeks. Keep in mind, we just received this information not even 2 weeks ago. So it has been a 24/7 rush to try to come together with a plan given all of the things that have gone on. And part of that is the new data that keeps coming our way also. So we are looking at that as well. We will continue to offer COVID testing, that we just offer it. We do not mandate it. It's simply there for our staff and our students if our families want to take part in that, but it's not required. And Derek, if you could go to the next slide, please. Our goal all along, our number one goal, is to get kiddos in Silver Falls back to school 5 days per week of in-person instruction. I'll say that again. Our goal all along, even since the spring, has been to get kids back in school so that we can effectively teach them. None of our staff signed up to teach in a virtual school. None of our administrators signed up to administrate in a virtual school. Our job is to do only 2 things. One is to serve you as a families and to serve your children. And we can only do that effectively when kids are actually physically in a building. So I want to lead off with that on this slide. We will continue to staff our schools with school counselors. School counselors are are a very needed part of our students' mental health. And having all of our students back under one roof, it'll be really important that we're able to shift supports to those students who need them. Not only that, but addressing some of the overall needs of all kids that are coming back to school. Supporting students and staff during the school day with dedicated social emotional learning time. So each of our schools will have, as part of the curriculum, teaching kids strategies on zones of regulation, how to cope, and also just modeling for kids what it's like to be back in school after such a long time off. Yes, we had hybrid, but that was only a couple days a week. We're talking about 5 consecutive days of in-person instruction, and that will take some support for our kids. And lastly, I just want to mention how special our Sequoia Falls Academy is. Our Sequoia Falls Academy was designed to help, to support, and to treat our most vulnerable populations in the adolescent years. And those are kiddos that have struggled to respond to traditional schooling. And I believe this past year we served upwards of 80 students. I could be wrong, that's off the top of my head. But we intend to grow that number considerably and to reach out and to capture more kiddos to help them get across the finish line so they too have choices after high school. If you could go to the next slide, Daniel. In terms of a communicable disease plan, we have that in place already. Our nurses, we work with outstanding nurses, healthcare workers. We contract with Legacy for that. And they really moved heaven and earth last year to deliver a communicable disease plan. And we will implement that same plan this year. And we'll continue to collaborate with Marion County Public Health. That's the acronym up there. We meet with our nurse team weekly for updates. Updates, collaboration, all the things that go on with dealing with this global pandemic. And of course, we would be remiss if we weren't listening to the voices of our medical personnel as well. If you could go to the next slide, Derek. And in terms of an isolation plan, if kids do get sick or if kids are injured, we are following the same protocol that we've had in place to have isolation rooms and healthcare areas for kids as well. So there's not a lot that has changed in our buildings in terms of protocol for safety, even when we had kids in school for hybrid. And so this plan is fairly brief, it's fairly straightforward, and the more information that we get, of course, we will make sure that we're messaging out to our community. We really spend a lot of time considering our communications to you all. You are our clients, and we do take your feedback very seriously on how that communications or how those communications are received. We will continue to do that. If you could go to the last slide, Derek. And in terms of our students on individualized education programs, or IEPs, our students with disabilities, we'll continue to make accommodations for them. And depending on what their individualized education plan calls for, depending on what each child needs according to their disability, we will have to address that in context. But I just want everybody to know that we do make accommodations for our children who do have disabilities. And I believe that brings us to the end. And board members, I'm happy to answer questions if I can. If not, we will take note and I will make sure to get right back to you. But I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Scott on this matter?
Scott, just so you know, we're all clear, and our community members here on Zoom and also here tonight in person are clear, with the framework here, besides the required OAR mask wearing, can you maybe go into detail about cohorting, other maybe some regulations that were there previously, just so
Sure.
we're all clear on if there's any other requirements besides
Sure.
the masking from the OAR.
Right now, I would consider masks as a major restriction that's been talked about. It's a transmission restriction that we have to implement. I would consider everything else as a recommendation. So the masks is a mandate, and that's by Oregon administrative rule. Everything else is a recommendation. So to your point, Aaron, there won't be cohorting. There's a really good reason for that, because the goal is to get all kids back in school 5 days per week. We cannot do that with cohorting, especially at the high school. There's no way. There's no way you can have cohorts and still have all the kids in the same building at one time, or eating lunch at the same time also. So that brings us also to social distancing. So we social distance where possible. It's recommended. Of course, we'll try to be as common sense oriented as we can, but all of that is recommended. So right now, the requirement, the number one requirement outside of what I just shared with you here, we have to have a communicable disease plan. We have to have isolation rooms. We have to have all that. The major requirement is masks, and the rest is what we would call recommended.
Thanks.
I guess a related question, sports, music, band, choir, can you speak to that at all?
Sure. So sports of any outdoor activity, of course, masks are not required. Choir masks are required. Band, since you actually need to put your mouth on an instrument, not every instrument, but on a fair number of them, masks are not required for that. And also, and sports would go in the outdoor piece and in indoor. And so we have communicated that out also through Parent Square, and we are happy to send out a follow-up communication as well, and we will be doing so in the next week, so that you know so that our community knows exactly what is expected. All of it also is online on the ODE website. And the framework that we are following is the RSSL Resiliency Framework. It's all outlined there as well.
Hey, Scott, you mentioned that outside activities don't require a mask. Is there any efforts to try to get more stuff outside, more lunches outside, more classroom time outside? I remember in grade school, on a nice day, sometimes you could persuade the teacher to haul you outside. Is that encouraged? I would hope so. And just get every opportunity to get people outside.
That's something that we'll be discussing with our principals. Tom, they just got back. They're just coming up to speed on 100 million other things that principals do when they come back. And we'll have to wait and see what we come up with.
Okay.
Janet or Lori, any questions for Scott? Okay.
Jonathan, just a clarification on the filtering piece. So every classroom in the district was assessed back in the winter, spring time as we were getting ready for hybrid. And so it either passed the test of enough flow with HVAC or through natural circulation with windows, that type of thing. Where that didn't meet the test, that's where the filters were purchased with federal stimulus dollars. So, and there's a flow chart on that we can post along with Scott's presentation on the agenda so everyone can see that.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. That takes us to 8B, the Silver Falls Preschool Update, and Kirsten, I believe, is going to present.
Good evening. My name is Kirsten Jorgensen. I'm the principal at Scotts Mills, and I've also been privileged to take the lead as the principal director. I'm not sure the exact term for the preschool. We I also get to shed some light on a fairly heavy meeting, so I'm happy to do that. I wish I would have brought a preschooler with me because that would have been perfect. So about 6 years ago, Scotts Mills received a kindergarten readiness grant because of our just the district's kinder scores, as well as Scotts Mills not having a preschool in our community. And through that, I got to learn a lot about early learning and working with the early learning hub of Marion County. And Jennifer Hannon and I started looking at the Preschool Promise Grant, which provides free preschool to people who qualify for it. A lot of our local, or not local, but districts around us have it. And so spring of 2020, February, a very nice time in 2020, we started the grant writing process. And it was quite a process, and then COVID came in there and kind of threw things off. But last August, we were awarded 18 slots for the free preschool promise program for Silver Falls School District. The startup was a little bit challenging. We had things, wildfires, ice storms, a hard time getting teachers, things like that happened. But we welcomed 5 amazing preschoolers in March. So we had 5 kids, 3 to 5-year-olds that came and went to our preschool, and it was the perfect end to a crazy school year. Our program goal in the preschool is to provide an opportunity for preschoolers to learn, grow, and thrive in a positive and safe environment for learning. We will prepare our students for successful entry into kindergarten with social, emotional, and cognitive development on track. We currently have 1 teacher, because we have 5 students. We have 1 teacher and 1 ed assistant, and we're adding another ed assistant this year, so we're excited for that. A portion of my time is also spent on the preschool. So we don't have our numbers yet for this year, but we know we're at about 8 so far, and we've been marketing. Derek McElfresh made some really great advertisement that will be in our town. We were at the Homer Davenport Parade, signs around town, so it's really exciting for us. Our creative classroom is our primary curriculum. This supports our students to prepare them for a successful transition to kindergarten. And then we also do a first 6 weeks curriculum, which is a real focus getting kids into school, and then also supports their social and emotional learning. So we've really enjoyed the curriculum we've selected and looking forward to some more a full year of the curriculum this year. We basically just got the first 6 weeks last year. But we're excited to move forward. We're located now at the United Methodist Church, so they've been a great partner for us, really helpful and supportive, and so that's been great. We go Monday through Friday from 8:15 to 2:30. We partner with the Early Learning Hub, so when families want to apply, they actually apply through them, not through us, and the Early Learning Hub determines if they're eligible. So families who are eligible need to be at 200% of the poverty rate. So if 100% poverty is you make $40,000 with a family of 6, if you make $80,000 with a family of 6, you would qualify. So it's really helping those families who can't quite pay for private preschool, but wouldn't qualify for a Head Start or another free program. So we also are really focused on offering, we're smiling because this is like decision made this morning, to offer a tuition base. We've had quite a few people who didn't qualify that are saying we'd love to participate, but we don't qualify. So we're working out the details for offering that as an option for families who don't quite qualify, or families who want their child in preschool for 5 days a week for a longer day. We do have a vision. There's always a vision. We want to move the preschool to the annex house over here at the high school, and then partnering with the high school and Schmeketa and creating a CTE program for early child development. When I worked in West Salem, we had a really amazing program that did that, and we talked a lot about how we can make that happen, offering our high schoolers could come and work at the preschool, getting credit, and hopefully grow some future teachers for Silver Falls School District. So that is the preschool in a nutshell. Any questions?
Thank you for sharing. I don't have a question, but
I just want to reiterate, so there's the people who pay for private preschool, right? And then there are some people who qualify for Head Start, and then there's usually a gap, and that's what this
is the gap. Yeah, so this meets the gap. Yeah. So the goal is to fit the families who wouldn't qualify necessarily for the free preschool, or the Head Start, but would but can't quite, private preschools are. And we also, all of our preschools have waiting lists in town. So there is a shortage. So we're also working with Durham to provide transportation. So hopefully for the families who want to put their 3-year-old on a school bus, we would offer that option for them. But, kind of see who's wanting to do that. Yeah.
Very good.
Excellent.
Jonathan, I would just add, I just want to echo the power of this work. First of all, to publicly thank Kirsten Jorgensen for all of her hard work on this. There's a Mount Everest of data that suggests that when kids are 4 years old, we need to get them into school as soon as possible. And so I don't want there to be any mistake that when we say preschool, we actually mean preschool. This isn't some place where you drop your child off and the child, does something, playful and all of that. This is actual school for 4-year-olds, and that's done differently than kindergarten, but it is so important. And so the dream in Silver Falls is that every single 4-year-old would have that same opportunity. And so in the second year, we're moving over to the annex on the high school campus, and we have Kirsten is taking this on as an additional responsibility. And so I can't overstate just how important this work is to the community.
Thank you. And then we're also, just for the public too, is we're working on getting our website up, and so families can go and access more information, because it is confusing. It's not, you don't call Silver Falls School District, you don't go to our web, so we're going to get that information so people can access it easily. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Thanks. All right, Steve, you are up with the financial report.
This is mic on. It doesn't feel like it. Is it? Okay. Daniel is also pulling up my slides, which are linked on board book already, but just so we could see them. So first of all, we have the July financial statements. Always the start to the fiscal year has the least amount of volume in terms of activity, but a lot of big events. We do get double payment to start off the fiscal year for our state school fund, so almost 17% of our state school fund revenue received. So it's our second highest month of revenue, November being the highest with property taxes, and it's our lowest amount for expenses. So a good net cash flow month there. So go to the second slide, Daniel, to the expenditure details. So there is always see the trends of expenditures, current versus projected, and also prior year versus current year. So you'll see that again on the second slide there, Daniel, of this presentation. No, the second page on the first PDF there. Yeah, if you just scroll down. Now back to the financial report with the graphs. Anyway, so in other objects, you'll see that there was quite a difference between this year and last year. So our annual insurance premiums are paid at the start of the year, which is over $300,000 for property casualty. So last year we paid it the first week of August, and this year we paid the last week of July. So that's why you see that difference there in that particular column. Other than that, everything's status quo and as planned there. So yeah, there's the slide. So of course the big news with the financials is the enrollment situation. Again, someone referenced in public comment. We've talked about it for over a year. At our low point last year, we were down about 400 students, or about 10% of our enrollment. We've been used to being a stable to slightly growing enrollment district, and so we don't really know, probably for about a month, to see who was actually going to walk in the door and see what the true impact is, and then beyond that, what the statewide impact is, because it did affect most school districts, between 5 and 10% enrollment decrease. So it's a big number, about $3.7 million at 400 students. That is our floor for this year, because we'd be funded on the current year or the previous year. But the other side of it is if everyone has this problem, then the amount per student would actually go up, because there's less total ADMW in the state. So there would be an offset kind of going the other way, but it still would be a net decrease to our revenue. So we just continue to keep an eye on that. Again, the budget called for about a 60% return on that decrease of 400, and right now there's evidence to say that wasn't conservative enough. It could definitely be back to what we saw last year, possibly. So we'll definitely be closely communicating that situation out and what the impacts are. Now on to more exciting news. Daniel, the second PDF there. Since February, as you know, we've talked every month about the opportunity that we had in front of us for participating in a pension obligation bond offering that we had. You adopted a resolution back in May. We had some presentations done in March from Piper Sandler, and we were just crossing our fingers to see if the Treasury rates would hold steady for us, and indeed they did, and better than we could have ever expected. The modeling that we had back in March, at the March 22nd work session, it was based on a fairly conservative estimate of a 3.5% true interest cost. The sale occurred on July 22nd, and we were able to achieve a true interest cost of 2.46%, which is 1% or over 100 basis points better than any offering in the history of the 20-year history of the program. And to put it in perspective, if you were to go to slide 4 on that, Daniel, page 4, there's page 3. It shows what we did back, the Silver Falls School District did in 2003 and 2004 when we participated in this. We borrowed at 5.73% and 5.49%. And through the first 15 years since that borrowing, the district has saved pension bond savings of $7.6 million or $5.4 million present value. That's just with the performance of the side account money and PERS that has obviously outperformed what we borrowed, and therefore we were able to pay off that UAL early and achieve savings for our district. This situation, we were part of a pool of 22 school districts and ESDs that participated in this, and it was an offering of $660 million. Our part of it was $35 million. I think we were the 5th largest participant in this pool, and we were the largest transaction of this kind for the week, and we had almost 3 times the orders that we needed, which made the pricing structure go really well. So we're really excited about the potential for savings. If you look at page 5, you'll see kind of how that sketches out over the next 19 years through 2040. And again, it's based on the performance of our side account in PERS. And of course, this model is based on steady return. The PERS board did decide to reduce their assumed earnings rate from 7.2% to 6.9% at their last meeting. So this schedule is updated to reflect that. It's also updated to reflect what we were actually able to, what our borrowing rate, true interest cost of 2.46 is. So of course, we know that the returns are going to go up and down each year, but we have, I think it's a 95% probability of coming out, ahead when we get to 2040, and you could see the potential there just based on a steady investment return on the PERS side account of present value savings of $15 million over the 19 years. We will achieve a savings this year in this budget, that top right number of $673,000, which was not budgeted. Is certainly a much needed help at this point in time. So the transaction actually closes on August 19th, and all the paperwork will be done. The money will be paid to PERS on behalf of the 22 school districts, and we will get an immediate rate credit from PERS that takes effect on September 1st, which is great because that happens right before our big payroll starts. So, of course, the offset to that was we have to charge an amount to payroll for debt service, but you can see that savings there will range between 3% and 4% each year compared to if we had not participated in the program. Again, after the first year or two, we'll have to see how the side account is performing, and that could be higher or lower based on performance. So now this comes on the heels again of back in September, we were able to take advantage of the great rates and refinance our general obligation bond debt. We have 7 years left on that to pay off the high school, and we are able to save $1.3 million over the last 7 years of the bond. That's not a savings into our general operating budget, but it does save the taxpayers $1.3 million over the last 7 years of the bond, so everyone should feel a positive impact on their property tax statement for that. So that's not dependent on future rate returns, of course. That's achieved. So feel really good about the opportunities that we were able to partner, and really appreciate your support in this, and really excited about the outcome. Couldn't even imagine that we would be below 3%. I think the best rate ever achieved was Salem Kaiser in 2015 at 3.75%. So we were fortunate, very fortunate. The last part of this is the resolution that I have as an action item tonight, and it's a mechanical piece to actually receipt the bond proceeds. Even though we don't actually receive it, it goes through the trustee and passes straight to PERS to pay off that unfunded liability on our behalf, but we do have to recognize that on the books. When I budgeted, I knew that back in February or March, as I was starting to build the budget, that we may or may not be participating in this based on where the rates ended up come July 6th, which was kind of our drop dead point. And I did actually budget for increased principal and interest payments in our debt service fund, but I didn't take into account this piece. It does not require a supplemental budget, but simply a resolution. And hopefully my cover sheet explained that well for you. So that'll be something on the action items later on. But definitely want to take any questions you may have on the topic, as I know there's a lot to the process. So
Questions for Steve?
Thanks for all your hard work, Steve.
Right.
You know, saving us, what was it, $15 million over the next 20 years and $670,000 next year, this coming year. Thanks for all your hard work with that.
you're welcome. Yeah, I hope it turns out that well at the end of the 19 years, but I think there's a good chance it'll be somewhere in that neighborhood.
Board members, if I might, Jonathan, I just want to mention that there were a significant amount of districts that did not participate in this. And so I want to point out that even though we're in the right place at the right time, it took a lot of smarts to be able to foresee the savings here and to see the opportunity. And I just wanted to make sure that I pass along our gratitude to Steve Nielsen, our Director of Finance and Operation, and his entire team. It's truly remarkable the amount of work they put in to get this done. This is a huge saving for the district over the years, and thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I also want to thank Kim and Sharon in our financial fiscal services department. They put a lot of work in this as well. And again, thank you for your support and seeing kind of the vision and how this works, because it can be a very complicated process, but really appreciate your support.
When you sent us the email saying all the good news, we were on the road traveling, and I really tried hard to explain the whole thing to my husband. And I think we got it. I'm like, I can't really explain all of it perfectly, but thank you so much for teaching us about the process, because it can be scary because it is a risk. But I feel so much better now with this rate. It's amazing. So thank you for being prepared.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long did the process take? How many months ago did this start?
Well, back in the fall, we were approached by OASBO, a Business Officials Association, about the possibility of Eco Northwest doing that initial analysis and running their 20,000 scenarios, kind of the actuary, so to speak, say, hey, what would it look like, and based on where the rates are, and running all the probabilities. And we participated in that just because, again, the rates were in a good spot. And then talks really ramped up in January, February, and they got folks that were interested to sign up, and then you know, it was March, we had the presentation. They started doing the outreach to the districts to provide boards with more education. So we had ours at that March work session, and at that point in time, districts either decided, you know, I think there was close to 30 that considered it at first, and then a few dropped out because PERS was talking about changing their assumed earnings rate, and there's a few that decided to wait, and there might be another offering here in a few months with those districts now that PERS has made that decision. But we ultimately decided that because the treasury rates were so good that there was more downside to waiting.
Yeah.
So.
No, thank you. I mean, it's a real complicated process, and the interest rate is nice and low, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not a guarantee. There is some risk, but it looks like it's good timing, and the interest rate looks good now, but it started 9 months ago, and you had to keep doing the process through all the craziness. And thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions for Steve? Okay. Well, that's going to move us to our first discussion item. And the discussion item 9A is discussion of public feedback concerning the mask mandate. We've received, I didn't count them, but a lot of emails on the topic from a lot of people. And we felt it was important that you hear from the board regarding sort of what the district's plan is and where the board's at regarding that plan. So that's what this is. This is a discussion. There is no action item tied to this discussion item tonight. And I'll open the floor.
I'll go first. Yeah, I was disappointed by that. I do like I like the local control. I know Scott announced the decision early in the summer, or was it even earlier than that. Data has changed, and I don't know if he would have held with that decision or not. I know that he's consults with all 7 of us and his team, you know, and the public. But I like the local control, and what probably one of the most important things I like about the local control, it's a local decision, and one of the best things about it is tonight. People got up in public and stated their case on both sides, and that's really important to see the faces of your opposition, and hopefully come to some understanding. I don't like it when it's just, well, it's that person's decision over there, and we don't have a choice. I don't like it. I don't like, not against masks, I don't like the way it's been applied, and I guess I'll illustrate it. I don't like, I've been out on the town here this week. I've been to dinner 3 times. I've been to Homer Davenport Days, had some adult beverages there at Silverton Park, and I think I counted 5 masks amongst the adults. The adults are the highest risk group. The adults, even vaccinated ones, are now getting it, and it looks like even spreading it. They're the highest risk for spreading it, and they're the highest risk for having bad outcomes. And yet it's the kids who have to wear the masks, and I'm concerned about the message it shows our kids. The littles. The human being has the longest childhood, I think, of most mammals. We come out and we're not done developing. The neurons are still forming. They need that facial expression. They need to know. They need to see each other. That's how they communicate. That's how they can sense if they're doing good or bad. It's a mask now. We don't like it when someone has a mask. Just, their face looks like it's a mask. It doesn't, they don't know how to read it. And I don't like that group of kids that has the least difficult outcomes are the ones having to carry the burden for this. And I'm concerned that they're going to see their, they and their classmates have to wear the mask, but the adults don't. That must mean there must be something wrong with them. That's how the kids, the littles, are going to perceive this. Because the adults don't have to wear the masks now. And as far as our high schoolers, they're just going to see us, all the adults, as a bunch of damned hypocrites, and they're not going to trust the institutions. And that's how I see it. And so I generally, I'm against the unequal how it's been divvied out. That's my major objection. I'll just note that our high school, all the students above in the high school are 12 and above. Those can all be vaccinated. I like to think that maybe that standard can be moved pretty quick, because they all have a choice, and their families makes a choice to get the vaccine or not. And I would just hope that everyone, no matter what side you're on, always leave room inside you, whatever your position is, to say, maybe I'm wrong about something about this. But no matter your position, I always ask myself all the time, because man, there's dueling science right now, and it is so full of politics, it's just ridiculous. And I just want to say something about Mr. Newton, Dr. Newton presented. Something I heard on a podcast the other day said that this does not seem to affect most younger kids in negative ways. It's mainly the negative outcomes are among the unseen. It's older folks who are mainly more infirm. They're not active. They got some other issue holding them down, holding them back, and we don't see them out and about. And so even though I'm someone who is kind of against a lot of these things, or anyway, you know where I stand. I always try to remember that. And another thing, and I forgot on this one, probably one of the biggest things that has driven me crazy about this is the messaging that's come from all sectors. It's essentially, and I'm going to be kind of provocative when I say this, but I'm just going to say it, is it's been kind of a hide under the bed and be scared until this goes away. That, and I wish there would be this is happening, we need to be careful, these are the precautions, but then another set of messaging that says this is something you can do. And I hope our schools can do that. We can deliver messaging about how to strengthen your immune system. Vitamin D, I remember 3rd grade learning about vitamin D and the sunshine vitamin. There's been zero messaging about that. I mean, I've been pulling my hair out for a year over this. We can make ourselves stronger and healthier, and we can protect the vulnerable. We can do both. And I really, that has been one of the things that's probably made me the saddest of all of this, is that we're all just supposed to be scared until somebody says it's okay. And it's not how we do it. We can do both. We can do both. And thank you everybody for presenting from both sides, and I appreciate the input.
Yeah, I'll dovetail on kind of what Tom said. I'm disappointed with the removal of local control by our governor. So my disagreement is more of on a philosophical level. It's not whether to mask or not to mask. It's more of, again, I believe that the control should be given to us as a district. I think we've all weathered through a lot of this pandemic. We've all been through this together. Not only our own community, but the whole world. We're intelligent human beings. I think every one of us has done a lot of research, and I'm not trying to say that I'm a scientist by any means. Dr. Newton is much smarter than me on those kind of things. What I'm saying is every one of us are intelligent human beings, have done a lot of research with COVID, how to keep ourselves safe, how to not get it, how to not spread it. The last thing I ever want to do is get it or spread it to somebody else, and I think we all in this room feel the same way. But again, mine is a philosophical disagreement with our governor in saying I wish she would have left the control to us as a district. Like Tom mentioned, I see a lot of lack of consistency. We're required to have our kids masked up in school, but as soon as they leave the building, they can go to McDonald's all together and not wear a mask, or another restaurant maybe that doesn't require masks. They can all go to a store together and hang out and not wear masks. So again, there's there's the conundrum of lack of consistency that I struggle with. I also do worry about our younger students. Particularly in my mind, those kinders, first, second, third graders that, do rely a lot on nonverbal communication. And even we know, and as adults, we rely on processing a lot about, we rely on nonverbal communication. Most of our communication is through those means. So for kids who are developing in those younger ages, my concern is the fact they're going to miss a little bit of that. Now, do I think they can overcome and we can overcome? Sure. But there is going to be a little bit of missing communication there. So again, I'm disappointed in our governor with that. Now, there's nothing necessarily this board as Scott has shared with the OAR and how it's come down. I hate to say this because it sounds defeatist, but it's not, because I've stated my position, is there's really not a ton we can do about it at this point. We have been sworn in to uphold the law. Our administrators have taken, as licensed employees, have to uphold the law. Whether we agree with it or not, it's not of consequence at this point. We have to submit to the law. However, I still think this board can voice our disagreement and disappointment with the removal of lack of control. Whether this board would like to do that or not, but I would support, if we have a majority of our board wanting to do so, feedback to our governor, expressing our disappointment. Now, that may not change the law, but I think it's our duty, especially with the folks that we've heard tonight, that all voices are heard, and if this board would be supportive of a letter or a statement to our governor. But I'd want to do it if this board was unanimously desiring to do that. But I would be in support of that. In light of, given the fact that this is an OAR and it's kicked down and we have to comply to the law, I really implore all of us, myself, our board, everyone here, that our focus really just needs to be focusing on getting our kids back 5 days a week. As you've heard from Scott, we will require masks. It won't be during lunch. It won't be for band. It won't be for sports. But at this point, I think we owe it to our kids to really focus ourselves and our efforts on getting our kids back 5 days a week. I know my kids missed it. Your kids missed it. Different stages of their careers. I had a senior that missed 1.5 years, basically. Graduated almost in a virtual world, for the last 1.5 years of his high school career. So every one of us has been affected by this. But I always want to look at it for a silver lining. The silver lining is, that I keep seeing, is we're going to be back 5 days a week. And yes, our kids are asked to wear masks, but they're back 5 days a week, and we're not in hybrid. We're not on online learning, which, as we all know, is not ideal. So I really think we need to just focus on that. We owe it to our kids that we got to get focused on getting them back 5 days a week, and that's what's going to happen. The last thing I just want to say is, and I don't want anybody to think I'm just trying to be too preachy here, but it bugs me it disappoints me to hear just some of the proverbial finger pointing from whatever side or whatever spectrum that I've seen in our community, and whether folks feel strongly one way or another on the issue. Tom mentioned this too, that we all need to have respect for one another in that, and we model this behavior for our kids. And let's really work hard to not cast judgment. Let's really work hard to dwell with understanding and peace with our fellow community members. I think that's super important. And if we can just stop the finger pointing, I think it would be really great. I think it's so important to model that for our kids, and that every one of us are examples to them. And every one of us in our community, especially that have kids in the district, want to get our kids back safe. We want to get our kids back and want nothing but the best for our kids. So if we could all just commit to that, I think we could have a much better environment to again, dwell with understanding and peace with our community members. So.
Thanks, Aaron. guys have anything they want to add?
Well, I will say that I like Aaron's idea of respect, and I think it's important that we respect our superintendent, and he needs to follow the OAR, and that's not negotiable. We follow the rules. So I wanted to just express my support for him in that. It's not easy. He's gotten a lot of mail, and that's really a tough position to be in. I also wanted to just respond to Aaron's, idea of the governor not communicating well, and I agree with that. I think that the governor overpromised and underdelivered, and probably the overpromise was probably the problem to begin with, and that got people's hopes up, and I don't think that was reasonable. And but I don't know that a resolution is the best use of our time, so that would be my hesitancy. But I totally agree that there was bad communication in that respect. And what is the worst part about it is what we're talking about here is the community relationship, because the people of Oregon were told one thing and then it changed, and that has caused a lot of friction, and I think that's really unfortunate.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, I'll add a couple of thoughts as well. One, we heard from a lot of people, right? We got a lot of emails. We got a lot of people spoke tonight. And one thing that I firmly believe, whether I ultimately agree with their conclusion or not, is that they all want what's best for our kids. I think that's something that we can all agree about. And so my hope is going to echo what we just heard, which is that we'll all be really patient and gracious with one another on this matter. People run a cost-benefit analysis with every decision they make, whether they know it or not. And I think ultimately people run the same cost-benefit analysis, and they just have different variables, right? Different things are important to different people for different reasons. One person's really, really worried about the physical implications of COVID. Another one's really, really worried about, their kids growing up being afraid of their shadow. And those things are both important. And I think if we can find a way to really just talk about it, rather than, saying that somebody's a COVID denier, or somebody wants to kill my kids, or somebody wants, it just gets hyperbolic, and I just don't think that's useful. I want to support Scott. I think he's got a really tough job. If we think ours is tough, his is probably that much tougher. And, he doesn't have a choice in this matter, and we don't either, right? So, I've heard a lot of people say, well, just don't do it. There's really not a practical out there, right, to be honest with you. We could pass a resolution. We could say, we disagree. But we really honestly don't have the authority, the power, or it would be irresponsible, frankly, to not set us up for litigation. It would set us up for endless complaints through this board process, through the official complaint process. It just wouldn't be effective. I prefer local control. I'll say that straight up. If I don't agree with the decision, I'd have decided differently. But ultimately, I don't think that we have that much practically that we can do in this matter, and I'm asking for your patience and understanding. So, I guess that's what I got to say.
Jonathan, I did notice that Janet wanted to say something.
Nope. Great, thank you, Dan.
Hi, thank you. Echoes. This is weird. So I'll just be super brief. I wanted to thank everybody who presented tonight and my fellow board members for just creating a tone of mutual respect and civility. Really honored to serve with all of you and to represent our district. The fact that we can come together as a community and share our feelings that are obviously very strong and passionate, and we can go this way, it's really encouraging. My hope for the masks is that that it can actually create the stability that we need. I want to echo what Aaron had said about 5 days a week being the most important thing, and Scott had mentioned that as well. My hope is that if we can stick with the masks and reduce transmission, that we can actually give our kids a consistent and stable semester. Right? Hopefully they won't be required for the whole year, but I'm concerned that if we didn't have that mask mandate, that we would have quarantining, we would have teacher absences, we would be in and out, the kids would not be in their classroom in a stable, consistent way with their classmates. And so my hope that this relatively small thing can really make that happen for our students. And I'm with Tom too, that adults have a responsibility here, and it shouldn't be just on the kids. And you're absolutely right, Aaron, that leaving the classroom and going somewhere else where no one is masked is not entirely fair, and it does kind of make it an inconsistent, policy. I understand that. And so I would really encourage people to do what you can to be responsible and get a vaccine or a mask if you can, and do those things so that we can collectively reduce the transmission rates in our county and create opportunities for our kids to be in classrooms without a mask potentially, as early as possibly November, December, maybe into next semester. But that's all going to depend on what the data do and how our community is responding and how we are keeping the worst of this thing away from our families and our children. And so, there's no easy answer here. You all know this. There's no quick fix. We all are just absolutely fed up and frustrated and done. But it is what it is. And I think we have to do what we can to protect our students. And I am particularly concerned about our most vulnerable students, because doing an optional mask puts the burden on those kiddos, and that's not easy either. And it just really deeply concerns me that those kids would not have the same access to education by virtue of some of the ways that they are vulnerable. So anyway, thank you all. That's my contribution.
Thanks, Shannon.
Jonathan, I'll say a couple things.
Sure.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. That's what Mark Twain told us a long time ago. And I only say that because we've had a lot of reference on both sides of this issue to statistics and to the information that we're being given by experts. And it's hard for everybody to digest. And so some people come down and say, well, you shouldn't have any independent thought about it. You should just listen to the quote experts. Other people, and I hope what we're teaching in our school district is that we should have independent thought, that we're teaching our kids to be critical thinkers, and not to just blindly follow the government, frankly. And it's difficult, really difficult. We've been told tonight by one person that chastised other people for bringing anecdotal evidence. And yet today I was on the CDC website looking for evidence of mask efficacy, because frankly, I would love that masks would be efficacious. That would be great. That would be a really good thing. 2 of their 3, quote, studies, 2 of their 3 were anecdotal evidence. One was an actual study, and I didn't get through that one today. But I was at a place 2 months ago. That place was up in the ICU at OHSU with my brother, who was dying of cancer. And it was interesting because me as a person coming in had to be masked up, gowned up. 1 person per day could come in. You're in this glass bubble. And the 17 or 18 pulmonologists, there was a cardiologist, there was oncologists, all together in a meeting, none of them wearing a mask. But if you go downstairs to the Starbucks person would tell you to pull your mask up over your nose. And that's the kind of thing that we're seeing all over the place. And so it's really hard to see, I guess a consistency of modeling of action, a modeling of, hey, let's not have, to make this political, it's really not political, it's factual, it's what we're seeing. If you're going to have a birthday party of 500-600 people and not wear masks, I mean, those people should be in the know, right? So we're being told time and again, on the one hand, wear a mask, but we're seeing modeling of not wearing masks all the time. But again, I really wish that masks would be efficacious. But I just can't see, having watched kids wear masks in schools and in other environments, the way that kids are wearing masks. I don't think there's a study of kids wearing masks because they don't do it well. They don't do it well at all. But that being said, we do have to follow the governor's, and they're not guidance, it's not guidelines, it's mandates, it's law. It's just like what Scott said. We have to follow that. That's the position we're in. We don't have to like it. I do want to say that I was really moved by some of the letters that we received with parents that have particular concerns for their kids, that stated those concerns, and I can't say they're wrong. I don't think they are wrong. I think that they should be advocating for their kids in the way that they think is best, just as people on the other side should and have done that. I didn't find it helpful when either side of the issue was condescending to the other side or disparaged the other side. But that being said, that was a very small minority, I have to say, and I was really encouraged by our community at our community by that. So I guess that's a lot of ramblings, but I guess the bottom line for me is we are here under the state of Oregon guidelines, and we don't have local control. If you want local control, then you need to take that up with the governor, and I will support personally the board and the school district and Scott. So.
Thanks, Owen.
One thing that I think is important to know too is that we all receive letters that come to us, and we all read them even if we don't personally respond. We have a protocol for who responds to it, and so I just wanted to put that out there in case people didn't think we're reading your letters because, I guess as Owen mentioned, we are reading your letters.
Great point.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in my fellow board members' mouth, but I read everyone in totality. I'm sure everyone here and Janet and Lori as well read every email in detail and take into account. And many of the emails I received from both kind of I hate to use camps or sides or whatever, but I hate being in a binary situation here. But from either side, many of them made me stop and think and chew on the information that I got. So I too want to thank our community for the input because it meant a lot to hear all the different pieces of input from all the community members.
Anything else?
Yeah, I would like to say, whoops, here we go with the echo. I would just like to say that I do support what Scott has laid forward. And it's a very, very, very fluid and sensitive time that we're in. I do appreciate the community stepping forward and sending us emails and letters. I appreciate reading all sides. And I really want to say thank you for those who have come forward in public comment and have spoken to us directly. And just as a final note, because I'm simply going to be repetitive, but I do support what Scott laid out. And it is a mandate. And I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That moves us to our discussion regarding the superintendent evaluation timeline, and we do have an updated timeline to discuss tonight.
So this was my task, and hopefully I didn't make a mistake, but it's totally possible. So if somebody finds a mistake, please speak up. Basically, I just went in and changed all the dates from last year's timeline to make sense for this year. And there was one addition, which was the second line there that says board superintendent review annual superintendent goals to be used as part of the standards and evaluation process. Because tomorrow's our big day with that. We didn't want to approve that tonight. We wanted, so we're leaving that for the work session.
Right. So later, we do have an action to approve this timeline. And does anybody have any questions or concerns with it? I appreciate you putting in the work. Thank you.
Debbie helped.
Going once? Twice? Sold. Yeah, that was easy. Okay. The board superintendent operating agreement. So we did talk about this at our last meeting, and Owen has put together a marked up version for us to consider, and there is an action item tonight regarding this unless we choose to defer it for some reason. So I'll open it up to conversation regarding the draft.
Let's have a quick comment. Thank you, Owen, for making these changes. I like it. I think it reads really well. My only question is under communication agreements, number 3. It seemed a little unclear. I think I know what it's intending to say. Let me just read it. When a board member and or the superintendent has an individual concern, he or she must communicate one-on-one, and here's the sticky part, with any member of the board superintendent team as appropriate. And the must communicate and then with any member was a little confusing to me. I think if I'm understanding correctly, what it means is it's sort of the old Quaker rule of if you have an issue with someone, you go to that person, right? You speak with them directly one-on-one. I think that's the intention of it. And I wonder if it would be a little bit clearer if it said must communicate one-on-one with the appropriate member of the board superintendent team, because presumably you have an issue with an individual, not any of the members. Does that make sense? Did anyone else get a little stuck on that one?
I think what you have to say makes sense to me.
It's a tiny change, but otherwise I'm a little confused by the sentence. So maybe that would be acceptable to you guys.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's not language that obviously I drafted there, but I agree with your reading of it and your suggestion to clear that up.
Okay.
I don't have any concerns with the change.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Owen, for marking it up the way you did. It was really easy to tell where the changes were.
Yep.
So if we're in agreement tonight, can we propose to just approve with the suggested edit?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on this item tonight?
Jonathan, I would just like to encourage everyone to think about this agreement, how important it is, and that even though it's not legally binding in any way, this is an agreement, and agreements that are made prior agreements always head off later misunderstandings. And so let's keep in mind what it is that we are agreeing to, because you will hold me to this agreement, and I will hold you to this agreement. And we need to model that for our community. So I just want to make sure that I mention that. And thank you, Owen. Very clear language. Really appreciate that.
And just to add that we also will hold each other to that. You're not in
Right.
charge of holding all of us to it. So, but your comment reminded me that we were going to talk about reading
Yep.
it at the beginning of meetings. So
Agreed.
go ahead.
Total agreement. Yeah, so I had the same recollection, and I think we ought to talk about it. So what do fellow board members think about the idea of taking turns reading this at the beginning of it? So sort of reading the norms, as Scott has put it, right, for the beginning of a meeting.
And it wouldn't be the whole thing. What was the proposed
The
section?
proposed would be just for the first 7, the 4 under collaborative governance, the 3 under communication agreements. And the whole thinking behind that is to center ourselves as a board superintendent team to also model that for our community and working together. And I'll just reiterate what I had mentioned during the work session, and that is that every single meeting that we have as leaders in the Silver Falls School District starts with norms. Norms, professional behaviors that we expect from one another. And we read those norms at every single meeting. This week we have the 3-day Leadership Institute. We have the 3-day Silver Falls School District Leadership Institute. And on day 2, we will be spending an hour together as Silver Falls School District leaders to go over our norms for the year. And those will be publicly posted and signed by our administrators. And that's how we hold ourselves accountable, exactly as Jennifer had mentioned with agreements here. So anyway, that's the context. The context is to read them. It centers us. I don't think it's enough to just put it up on the screen. First of all, I don't think anybody looks at it. And second of all, there's a lot of research to suggest when we post signs that people only look at them for 2 weeks, and then just after that, they're invisible. And so, anyway, I've captured my feelings on it. Jonathan, thank you for allowing me to speak on that.
Yeah, absolutely. What other board members think? Well, I'll say I'm fine with trying it. Like, that's not a concern for me. I think it can't hurt is sort of where I'm at, right? So will it help? I hope, right? So I'm game, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I like it.
And so what we're thinking about, I'm just trying to gather the collective thoughts here, like just going down the line and one person read number 1, next person read number 2, is that?
I think we do it so that one person read them that meeting, and then
okay, so all 7?
And then another person would read them on another meeting,
Okay.
and we would make sure before the meeting that they knew it was their turn, and if for whatever reason they weren't comfortable that night, we'd choose somebody else.
That is a lot to read, though.
Actually, Jennifer, it's actually not a lot to read.
Okay, all right.
Take less than a minute to read, and I would really like to be a part of that rotation as well. So I would be the 8th person, or I'd be happy to start it out whenever you decide as a board to adopt this. I would be more than happy to start out that meeting. I'm just volunteering. And if you're a member of any professional organization, most professional organizations start out the same way, with a script. And we do that to just center ourselves. So I think 7 is a good number. As administrators, I think we have 8. I could be wrong on that. We had 8 last year.
While we're looking at this, and I just was reading it to see what I thought about reading it, I did come across a little grammatical error in number 4. In changing the language to the board may only, the second only after decision should be stricken.
Oh.
So it's just a grammar due to the change.
I see it now too.
I would add that to the.
Perfect. Okay, sounds like we have what I'll call unanimous consent. I don't hear any objection to the idea, so. All right. That will move us to our public comment statement. And that's the part that the board chair reads before public comment. And we did talk about that as well at the last meeting, and we have an update to it. So let's see, Janet or Lori, I don't know which one of you wants to take the lead to kind of talk about the draft.
I can start off, and then Lori can jump in if I leave stuff out. So really what we were trying to do is take the 3 different documents that we had and kind of pull them all together. And one of the things that you had expressed a desire for, I think it was you, Jonathan, had said, is there any way we can just put it all in one place and then have the statement sort of set aside, set apart, so that we don't have so many different versions and documents. And so there wasn't a lot of rewriting. I did try to condense some language just for the sake of it not being so long. But for the most part, I think all of the salient issues that we want our public to understand are captured here. You all please let me know if we've left something out. I think there are 2 major questions, at least that came up for me. One was in paragraph number 2, where we talk about rarely will the public receive an immediate response. This, we may refer the matter, we may place the issue on a later agenda, we may choose not to take action. That is currently, some version of that is currently in our current statement that you read, Jonathan. I think one decision we need to make is, do we want to keep that do we feel that that's important to share? Do we want to put that back into the statement? You'll see here, for the purposes of this, I pulled it out. Again, because the statement was getting so long. So I wasn't presuming to make that decision for the board, just to say, here's something to consider that maybe we don't need that in there. But you guys we can talk about that. And then the rest of it, again, trying to keep it short. I know it can feel sort of long to read. This is a slightly longer. I'm trying to remember how many lines it was. Slightly longer than our current version, but not significantly. But it seemed like all of the things that were in there were important to be in there. They were either logistical, like this is how you ask for an opportunity to speak. Here's how much time you're going to have and why. And then something that is not currently in our policy, in our statement rather, but that I think we thought was important to say. This is not an opportunity to complain about individuals in the district. That's not appropriate. There is a process for that. So I will, Lori, if you want to jump in, and then we'll open it up for you guys to give us some feedback.
No, I mean, I think that's what we were attempting to do, was to really condense this in a real comprehensive manner, and that's what we are attempting to do, so it can flow. I too would like to direct, maybe Scott can answer about the rarely will the public receive an immediate response to information, because I know that Scott is very good about follow-up. And so how do you feel about that sentence, Scott? Because I know that you are very good with communication.
Scott just stepped out for a second.
He just left, and
he stepped out.
I'm pinch hitting right now, so I'm going to have to freestyle on this, which Scott's told me not to do. So I think the point the board's trying to make, though, is that the person's not going to necessarily receive, it's not going to be an interaction with the public. And I think you've done a great job of at least acknowledging people speaking. It's a courteous thing. It breaks the awkward silence. But I think in general, I think that if people are communicating or are being directed back to Scott, he's definitely going to get in touch with them. So I don't see any issues with how this is written here, as far as how, and I don't think Scott would either.
Very good.
One of the things that I noticed a couple of things. One was the last two sentences of the second paragraph of the statement we read. So given time constraints, public comment will be limited to a maximum of 10 individuals. The chair may choose to disallow comments that are duplicative. So it felt to me like that particular two sentences might be able to be shaved from the part that's read. And if we chose, we could throw in a sentence about how the board, will rarely, respond to help set the stage. So those were maybe some thoughts that I had. I had one additional thought, and then I'll hear your feedback on it. On the last paragraph, finally, the board will not hear complaints against district staff or board members. I think we ought to insert the word individual. I think if we leave it the way written, it would imply that we're not willing to hear complaints about sort of generically district staff or board members, and that seems a little stifling to me. So.
Okay.
I would just agree, if I still can freestyle, is that I think if somebody was to come and not know that you're not going to interact with them, I think that's appropriate to be removing that from your script. I think leaves people that are new to the process not knowing that you're not going to interact. So I think I like your suggestion there, Jonathan, of taking out one of those two sentences in the second paragraph and replacing it with that statement.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because even the last sentence about disallowing comments that are duplicative. That, I wrote that to replace a longer sentence that said, please keep your comments to new information. And that was a little confusing, and I thought, okay, what do we really mean there? Well, we don't want people to just keep coming up and saying the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But generally people don't do that. And also, sometimes like tonight, we may feel that we need to hear from people, even if they are largely expressing some of the same feelings. That may be important. So I agree. I think those two sentences could easily come out. So that's a good idea.
And Jonathan, you're on that last sentence of the second paragraph about the limit of the 10 individuals and being hardline on that. I don't ever want to give our public community a thought that if there's something important to talk about, that they don't have an open forum. This is the open forum for feedback. Right. And so I don't want to have any wording in there that would limit or feel like any community members inhibited to provide feedback. So I agree with you on that.
Thank you. Other thoughts and feedback for Janet and Lori? Janet, question for you. Would you prefer that, to take what I'll just call another swipe at this for a future vote, or do you want to try to sort of live agree to what we might want to tweak in that for tonight?
I'm happy to do whatever the board is comfortable with. I mean, it might, because there's not a lot of urgency around it, we can easily just take it, make those changes, and we can look at a nice clean copy. That works for me.
Yeah, could we do it at the next, at the work sessions?
We can.
Sure.
I mean, we don't often vote.
Yeah.
With this particular one, I think we could certainly have a board vote on, so.
Yeah.
I certainly support that. I think it'd be just nice to have the clean version, make sure everybody's in agreement, and
Right.
it's not just changing a word or something. So.
Right. That sounds good.
Well, I appreciate you guys putting the work in. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So that brings us. Well, if I can open up my board book. Okay, policy updates. So we do have a number of second and final readings tonight. I am not going to go through them individually, but if anybody would like to discuss any of the second or final readings, now is the appropriate time. Going once, going twice. All right. And that brings us to our second public comment. So, I did cut us off earlier at 8 o'clock, knowing that we had a lot to cover tonight. Apologies in advance for that. But I would certainly welcome people if they would like to address the board now, and we do have a second public comment, so.
So I believe you have, and then we do have one online after.
Okay. Yeah, come on up.
Good evening. I was not planning on talking at all, but my name is Wendy King. I have lived in this town all my life. I'm the 4th generation Silvertonian. I attended K through 12 here, Go Foxes. My grandfather was 15 years plus on the school board for the high school. And I have a deep respect for the work you guys do. I applaud you all. My concern is, obviously, there's, like you guys have all said, there's opinions on both sides. Nothing's going to change at this point. Everyone's hands are tied. It is what it is. My concern moving forward is reaching out, like several of you, Board Member Edmonds and Buckles and Koch and Von Flew. I applaud you guys for being willing to reach out to the governor and support your community and all of the community. I mean, right now, not saying anything is basically not supporting those of us on the other side. My concern is, and like Board Member Traeger had mentioned, it may not be a good use of our time to do that. And it's alarming because as elected members of the board that you're on, I feel like that is your job to take that time and reach out, listen to all of your community on both sides, and reach out and make an effort. Whether you think it's going to matter or not, you're going to make a lot of these parents a lot happier if they can at least see that our school board is listening to everyone and making an effort on both sides. And right now I feel like that's lacking. So there's confusion because the school district's motto has always been, you know, we're not going to leave any kids behind. All kids matter. It doesn't matter about their social, economical status. Everyone deserves an education. So now we look at the point of, what about those kids due to religious beliefs, health concerns on the other end for wearing a mask, mental health concerns, anxiety, panic attacks? What happens to those kids? And that has not been addressed. Is there any accommodations for those kids moving forward into the school year? There's been no comment that I've seen from the school district or the board as to what those accommodations might be. I think if there's some good communication, it will take some of this frustration and angst away from the whole topic of masks. So yeah, I'd like to see what the accommodations are going to be. Darn it, I had one more point, but that's okay.
Thanks, Wendy.
Kudos to all of you guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Just holler when they're promoted, please. Okay. You said Wendy, is that what you said? Wendy, okay. Wendy Smith. Wendy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm going to be a little echoey. I also wasn't necessarily going to say anything, but after listening, there's so much that was said that I would echo. I can see both sides very clearly. I try to be one that is respectful of all people's experiences. We are all on different journeys, and we all have our own experience, and it's our job to be respectful of each individual and their journey and their experience and their opinions. I also want to express appreciation to the district. As hard as the last year and a half has been, I have 4 children that are in the district in various grades. Just the different options that were provided for our children, the virtual, the option to return in person, even though it wasn't ideal the end of last year or what we all may have wanted, we at least got them back part-time. And then there's also options for free public online education. So I appreciate the different options that are there for our children. But I guess the big part that I would like to speak to is there is some frustration for me. This is not about whether to mask or not to mask. This is about respect. This is about our choice. And the frustration is that that choice is being taken away, that mandate has been handed to us. And whatever side we choose to be on, our choice is no longer there. When it comes to science, when it comes to statistics, I echo with Von Flew that you can make those numbers and those science meet whatever you want them to mean. They can fit all sides. You can find information to support whichever side you choose to take. So I guess my biggest thing would just be that we could as a community come together to fight for our ability as parents, as community members, to choose for ourselves what's best, not only for us as a community and as a district, but as families, as students. So I would hope that we could be respectful of one another. I would hope that we could not shame one another for feeling the way we want to feel, for having the thoughts that we want to have, and for being vocal and supporting those things. But that we could be respectful, that we could fight together for the benefit of our children. Because just as much evidence as there is to support why masks are effective and why children are dying because of those things, we have evidence to support suicide and mental health. So let's put those aside and work for the greater good. Thank you.
Thank you.
This will be Rob.
Rob, okay.
Should be in now.
Rob, can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I can't do video, slow internet. Thank you. Rob Chadwick. I've got a son and 2 other family members attending schools in the district. So there's been some talk tonight about a resolution by the board in support or opposition of the mask requirement or local control. Maybe you can clarify, because the district has already taken an official position of not requiring masks next year, according to the communication that the superintendent sent a week and a half ago. And also, the superintendent sent an email saying it was the district's belief that quote, we can provide a safe, healthy learning environment for all students without requiring masks. So my question is, who developed the official position? Does the board support that official position? What information led to that official position? Is it the superintendent, the school reopening committee, or nurse consultants who are responsible for the district's communicable disease plan? It's just unclear, because positions have been stated. So maybe if you could clarify whose position that is, I'd appreciate it. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience wish to come up?
We still have 2 more online. Sorry
Okay.
if we're having a bit of difficulty. This should be Eliza back again with audio issues resolved.
Okay, we'll have Eliza, and then we'll do somebody from in here. Yeah, okay.
Hello, and thank you for bearing with me with the technical difficulties I experienced earlier. Sorry, I couldn't join you tonight. I had an airport trip. Anyway, I wanted to respond to a few things from this meeting. Firstly, I wanted to say that I think it's a super wonderful idea to operate Preschool Promise with a concurrent CTE course about early childhood development. Thank you, Mrs. Jorgensen, for thinking outside of the box and working on Preschool Promise. I also wanted to say hooray for saving $673,000 and potentially $15 million more over time. And also for your work, Steve Nielsen, on changing our bond values and saving us $1.3 million as a district. Thank you so much. With that said, I'm going to continue back to the mask concerns. I just say that I think that the mask mandate is out of control of our district. I have already stated that I think that we should think of the common good more than ourselves. However, I also want to say that I have real concerns about operating issues with illness happening in school this year. We didn't have colds and flus last year. because of being home and everything. And I think we're going to have a lot more sickness in our schools, whether it's COVID or a common cold. And I heard Mr. Drew say that we are going to be following the same protocols as last year. So this would mean that we are unable to go to school if we feel sick, teachers and students alike. So how will students who contract or are exposed to COVID and therefore cannot attend school in person for a period of a quarantine be offered schooling? Last year, families and teachers that recognized cold symptoms in their students were asked not to attend school. How will students continue to learn with these more strict guidelines about keeping illness out of the school? And thank you to all the teachers and families that make the difficult decision to stay home while experiencing any illness. I expected to see more during the reopening address tonight about how we will deal with closing classrooms or accessing learning for students who have to stay home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eliza. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Okay.
No, except to say that that will be addressed when we work with our school principals on how to roll that up, because our school principals will be doing a lot of the communicating as well.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Come on up.
Good evening. Thank you guys all for what you do. I'm going to make it real quick. It's getting kind of late. I came tonight because I'm ready to
State
push.
your name for the record.
I'm Robert Stadley. Sorry about that. I've got two kids in high school. One to be a junior and a senior. And as most of you know, if you've had kids that age, they got drop kicked into being adults pretty quick last year and a half. So anyway, I'm kind of tired of being pushed around. And I understand that you guys, your hands are tied. It's pretty obvious. You've given us some of the information we need on where we can push back, but my main question is where will you draw the line in the sand? Are we going to be back here next meeting with another OER that says the kids can't come back to school 5 days a week? What happens then?
It's a great question.
So anyway, we'll be pushing back.
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that. Thank you. Okay, we'll toggle back and forth here.
This is Astrid Potter.
Astrid, okay.
Hi, can somebody speak, because I think I may have an issue with my hearing.
You're very faint. We can't hear you, though.
Yeah, I think I've got an issue with, that's all right. I don't need to be able to hear you. Can you hear me? Just somebody thumbs up, Janet or Lori? Okay. So hopefully pretty quickly, I know nobody wants to see a man governor. We don't want to be told what to do. It's kind of in our blood, in our training. However, Director Von Flew said a couple of things that kind of spoke to me. And he was kind of coalescing some of the anti-mask comments. And talked about consistency of action and modeling. Where this really speaks to me is that what I've seen recently in our society, in our community, is that consistency of action and modeling only occur with mandates. I'm not saying that I want my child to wear a mask all day in school. As a matter of fact, I have personally made a choice that in-person schooling is not the answer for him this year. That was before the mask mandate started going back and forth. It had to do with how he learned. When the mask mandate came down from the governor, that was welcome to him, that he was not going to be in the classroom. If he were in the classroom, he would wear a mask because that's what he has been trained to do. I hope you understand that I can't hear you. I see the main screen flickering as though the volume is too much. Lori and Janet, I can see you both really well, so if I come to time, please just somebody flag me with like a, but really that's all I actually had to say, is that the main thing that I wanted to say is that consistency of action and modeling in our divided society are only done through mandates. It's not what I want, it's not what you want, it's not what any of us want, but it's what we have proven. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid. All right, somebody from in the audience, come on up.
Hi, my name's Carly Von Flew, and I'm a junior at the high school this year. And I just wanted to say that it has been great to hear from you guys and everybody that we're going back to school for 5 days a week. That's really encouraging. But I would also urge parents and school board here and members of our community to keep fighting for unmasking us in school. I think it's really important that we can see each other's faces and interact that way. And I would just say, as good as it is to hear that we are back in school 5 days a week, please keep voicing how important it is to be unmasked in school. I think that's important. So thank you for all you guys are doing.
Thank you for coming up. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, come on up.
I'm Haley Hamilton, and I have an incoming freshman, and I have just more of a couple of questions. I think everyone else has covered kind of the rest of our thoughts, but for the board and as well as administration, what are the teachers going to be allowed to teach this year? Are they going to be more mask policing? Last year we had, my son respectively does not wear a mask, and most teachers understood his reasons, and he will very much tell you why and respectfully tell you why. But there was some where it was more mask policing overall in the classroom than actually teaching. So I'm not sure how much teaching actually got done in some of those classes. So that's one of my questions on that. And then for the students you mentioned that were maybe on IEPs or 504 plans, is there plans in place now if those students can't wear a mask due to anxiety or other issues that they may have that will accommodate them? Are they going to be excluded into a maskless room, or are they going to be able to be in the school with the rest of their classmates like they would normally be able to be? And my last question is, are they going to have to wear masks during PE? I know sports, they said not, but is that part of PE as well? And thank you guys for all your hard work. I know it's hard and having to be in this situation. I'm in the event industry, so I totally get it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh.
My name is Amanda Bayard. I came here very much not wanting to speak at all. My kids actually don't attend any of the Silver Falls School District schools. We have purposely put them in private school from the very beginning, and I'm a preschool teacher at that school as well. I don't represent them at all, but that's who I am. I grew up in Silver Falls School District though, and I absolutely loved it. I moved here in 4th grade, and my parents stripped me out in the middle of my junior year, and it absolutely devastated me because I loved my teachers, I love this community, and as soon as I could, I moved my family back down here because I loved the school so much. Unfortunately, that just hasn't, that's kind of changed. Regardless, I do want to see answers on what's happening, like like the last gal asked about the enforcement of the masks. Because as I was reading through the frequently asked questions for the ORAs, it said that it was going to ultimately be a local decision on enforcement of it and disciplinary actions, and they're recommending no punitive actions whatsoever. So what are we going to do? If kids show up without a mask, are you going to tell them they have to go home? Like, are they not going to be able to receive schooling, or are they going to be able to get that schooling done? Like, I have talked to so many kids who are just so frustrated. One girl was in tears because she has asthma and was having to still do PE, wearing her mask and having an asthma attack every single day in PE. And she was tired of it. Like, that is, I'm sorry, I know people are tired of hearing that it's child abuse, but that's child abuse. You're putting a child in a physical harm. You're harming her by making her do PE with a mask on, having to take her emergency inhaler because she's having an asthma attack. And I just want to know, like, can you say that as a local enforcement here, like as the school board, that you're not going to discipline these kids? They can still receive that schooling. Yes, there is a mandate. Yes, you have to follow that mandate. You have to require them. But do you have to enforce it? You do not have to enforce it. You can make that stance. You might have to require it, but you can make the stance that you're not going to discipline these kids. You're going to allow them to have the schooling that they deserve to have. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and promote. While they're promoting, I will say that some of these questions we've been hearing are questions that are being discussed. I mean, there just aren't answers always yet, just so you know.
We should have Dimitri center up.
Okay. Dimitri?
This is actually Maria. I'm just signing in through his Gmail account.
Hi, Maria.
Hi. I wasn't able to attend tonight. I'm not feeling well, so I decided to err on the side of caution and stay home. I was supposed to be part of the meeting or sit there with Stephanie tonight. Her and I worked on that message together. What I wanted to reiterate is just the sentiment in her message, as well as from an earlier email that I sent to the board, which was, please do everything you can to protect freedom of choice down to the individual level. Please protect choice to remain just what it's defined to be, an act of selecting or making a decision when faced with two or more possibilities. We teach students to be brave and do difficult things even when no one else is, and we ask this board to be an example of that. Show students and parents they are represented and be the shield against forced mandates on this and any other mandated issues. Be brave enough to consider seeing this protection to the highest expression possible and joining other school boards to put forward the resolution to the state for free choice and local control. Perhaps even challenging the legality of mandated face coverings per an ORS 3392288, which in my understanding prohibits certain types of face coverings in public schools that can impede or create risks of breathing. There are several more inclusive, less invasive, and psychologically affecting tactics that could be used to combat COVID. Some of these could be any student feeling unwell, stay home or be sent home, heightened awareness, distancing, increased sanitation practices such as washing hands or using sanitizer, daily cleaning of high-touch surface areas, and of course, students free to choose to wear a mask. Any or all of these tactics are much less invasive and inclusive way to curtail COVID and not to infringe on individual choice, which is a precious right slipping away from us, or rather being taken away from us. Any one child is not more valuable than another. We can't sacrifice one child's value for another. They all matter. This district's schools don't belong to the masked and vaxxed, nor do they belong to the anti-masked and unvaccinated. The reality is both of these groups exist, and we need to find a way to coexist. Thank you for hearing my thoughts on this and for your service to the district. I hope for an all-inclusive solution for this contested issue that will not leave anyone feeling marginalized or less valued. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Okay, anybody else? All right, well, we really appreciate the feedback. Let me check, and I think we are moving into action items. So action item 11A is the resolution that Steve discussed. This is the one that increases the general fund appropriations for the fiscal year. And at this point, I would accept a motion to approve said resolution.
I move that the resolution be adopted to increase general fund appropriations for the 2021-2022 fiscal year to reflect receipt of pension obligation bond proceeds and subsequent lump sum payments to PERS to pay off district unfunded actuarial liability, or UAL.
Second.
Second.
And second. All right, any further discussion? Okay.
All right. Lori?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We have the superintendent evaluation timeline that we discussed earlier. At this point, I would accept a motion to approve said timeline.
I move to approve the superintendent evaluation timeline for 2021-2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? Okay.
Lori?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Owen?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Motion passes. Board Superintendent Operating Agreement. We did discuss a couple of minor additional modifications, which I believe we've all agreed to verbally. I would accept a motion to approve the marked up version with the changes we discussed at this meeting.
I'll move to approve that with the marked up version with the changes we suggested tonight.
So moved.
Second?
And seconded. Any discussion? Okay.
Lori?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, we are going to skip the public comment statement tonight, which moves us into all of the final reading policy updates. I'm not going to read them all off. As I stated in an email, we will be voting on them as a block unless anybody requests that one be pulled out. Okay, with that, I would accept a motion to adopt the final reading, the list of final reading policy updates as specified in the agenda.
So move to approve the policy updates marked final reading as stated in the agenda.
Okay, moved, so moved.
Second.
And second. Any additional conversation?
Lori?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. That takes us to future agenda item requests. Anybody have anything to bring up tonight?
I do. I threw out the idea of potentially, if this board would want to discuss a resolution or a letter or a collective statement from our board reflecting many of our community members, and we heard a lot tonight on the removal of local control. I think that's something that maybe as a board we should look at. I think we heard pretty overwhelming testimony from our community that it wasn't about mask or to mask or to not to mask. It was about our rights being heard as a district to maintain local control. So it's something I think that maybe if we want to discuss deeper as a board, that again, we know that this may not change the mandate, but with local control, I think if we want the governor and the government to hear our feedback, it has to start somewhere. And we can be the voice for the folks that we represent here in the community. And I think we owe it to them, as we heard tonight.
Thanks,
So,
Aaron.
Yeah, I would agree with Aaron, so I'd be in favor of seeing that on the agenda as well.
Good to know, thank you. Any other future topic ideas?
I just want to make sure we circle back around to the idea of visiting schools, and I think that Allison Stolfus's comments tonight kind of, she said, we'll talk to some teachers. Well, that would be better in a facilitated environment, I guess, is what.
Just so you know, and Leslie and I have been talking about this because we're starting to think about our year-long plan and Leslie and I will be meeting in schools every week, that we'll give you those dates, and we can set up a protocol that if you're in the front of the school, when we show up and we're ready to get in classrooms, you're more than welcome to come with us.
I love it.
And we can set something up there. It'd be great to have you there. And then that way you have the entire year. Of course, we'll be visiting more schools than just on those days, but those will be our teaching and learning days that we have blocked out on our calendars to do nothing else but go to observe and teaching and learning, and it'd be really nice to have you tag along and participate.
Thank you.
Very good, good to know.
Thank you.
Any other future agenda items to consider? All right, well, thanks, everybody. Without dissent, meeting adjourned.